Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar titled Transform Your Collaboration, SharePoint and Orbis Infinity. My name is Kelly Nauman. I'm the Customer Success Lead for North America here at Orbis Software. Some of you may know me already, but for those who don't, I've been at Orbis for about a year, helping our customers to get the value they expect out of our software. Prior to that, I've been in the customer success space for about 8 years now, working with all kinds of customers from small local government orgs to global enterprises. With me today is Mickey McDonough. Mickey, do you want to say hello, introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Mickey McDonough. I've been a professional services consultant here at Orbis since the start of 2023. Before this, I was working as a product manager, a technical account manager for a lot of software clients. But happy to be here and looking forward to walking you guys through SharePoint.
Awesome. All right, so let's take a look at our agenda for today. So we're going to start off with a few updates from Orbis Software, some things that we're really excited to be sharing with you today. After that, Mickey's going to dive into an overview as well as a demo of the different features available in your Orbis Infinity SharePoint site and how they can help you transform your collaboration. I'll also share some best practices with you, some things to consider as you build your SharePoint site out for your stakeholders. And we'll have plenty of time at the end for Q&A, so feel free to drop questions into the questions panel, as I mentioned before, and we'll hit them all up at the end. All right, and with that, let's get into it. So I'm going to start off with a few updates from us. Most of you have already seen the announcement for this, but I wanted to be the first one to announce via Orbinar that iServer 365 is now officially known as Orbis Infinity. I know that there have been a lot of questions from you all about the name change, so I just want to reassure you that Orbis Infinity is the same great tool you've come to know and love. We're just updating the branding to modernize it and reflect the infinite possibilities of what you can achieve with us. So you'll see this new branding roll out over the coming weeks and months. I believe our website's already up to date, but you'll see updates in the product as well. So stay tuned for more on that front and let us know what you think. The other big happenings we're really excited about are the Orbis Navigate events in May. We're doing meetups in London and New York, where we'll be bringing customers together for a day of collaboration and learning. We've got some great customer speakers lined up for both, as well as sessions with our product team, our professional services team. We'll be doing a workshop and some updates on our customer community. The event in London is on Wednesday, May 3rd, and New York's is on Thursday, May 18th. We do still have availability, a few spots left for both of those events. So if you'd like to attend, feel free to register. You guys should all have a link provided to you, or you can reach out to your customer success manager or your account manager and we can register you on your behalf. We'd love to see you there. We're really excited about it and look for more of these to come, as the year goes on. Also, a quick note on future Orbinars. You may have noticed that we're doing these on a fairly regular basis now. Our next Orbinar is going to be on business capability management, and that will be on May 25th at the usual time, 3 p.m. GMT, 10 a.m. Eastern. So those are the updates I wanted to share with you today. With that, without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Mickey to do an overview and the demo.
Yep, thanks, Kelly. So just go ahead and bear with me 1 minute as I go ahead and share my screen with you all. Yeah, so in this case, happy to go ahead and deliver the demo. So I'll be walking you all through some of the key aspects of SharePoint. And in this case, I'll be able to walk you through some specifics for SharePoint. So for example, we have impact analysis that you'll be able to run. You'll also be able to go ahead and model documents through the likes of Visio, Lucidchart, and Microsoft Word as well, using our Word export tool for some live documentation. You'll be able to run some portfolio insights through Power BI. And then you will also be able to use Power BI for row mapping, and then also use another tool like Project Online as well. So you'll be able to leverage everything that is achievable through SharePoint off the bat. And then we also have the ability to have some rich data through Orbis Infinity through our integration with SharePoint. And then you'll be able to effectively layer a number of integrations like ServiceNow, Power BI, Azure, and even Jira on top of Orbis Infinity. So you can find all of these integrations and solutions that come out of the box through our Solutions Hub. So you'll be able to leverage that and make sure that you are able to get the largest return on investment for Orbis Infinity and make sure that you can achieve everything that you want to using our platform. So with that in mind, I'm just going to go ahead and walk you all through a demo. So in this case, I'm just going to exit out of our presentation and walk you through some of the highlights of SharePoint. So for this demo, I'll be walking you through my own personal SharePoint site that I use for presentation purposes. So obviously your own SharePoint sites will be a little bit different in terms of navigation, but effectively the functionality remains the same. So as you can see in my SharePoint site, I have it set up in a specific way. So I have my portal, which is where all of my users will land when they go to the main site. I have tiles for case studies, common use cases, access to my repository, which in this case is Orbis Infinity, and then also access to the Solutions Hub as well. So you'll always be able to customize your SharePoint site to make sure that it is beneficial to your users and how you expect them to navigate the site. But for our first feature, I will walk you through the document library and the diagram viewer. So in this case, for my own site, I can access the document library in the navigation at the very top here. And when you initially get set up with your document library, you'll have multiple libraries in this case. And this is where you'll be able to store all of your documentation. So it could be Microsoft Word docs, Excel files, or also Visio diagrams as well. So in this case, you'll be able to go ahead and use your document library and store all of your diagrams so that they are within a single source of truth to make sure everything remains up to date. So in this case, I would go ahead and click my document library. And once this loads, as you can see, I have a number of libraries, so 16 total. And that's because I have 16 models within Orbis Infinity. And as best practice, we always recommend that you have at least one document library for each model that you have within your repository. The reason for that is because we want to make sure that when folks are uploading their documents and their Visio diagrams, that everything is organized and neat, just make sure nothing gets lost. So we always recommend having that sort of one-to-one ratio between your document library and your models within Orbis Infinity. In this case, I would be able to browse all of my documents here within my Big Bank document library. So in this case, you can see I have a number of Visio diagrams. And for my own document library, I have all of my diagrams grouped by the use case. So in this case, I have app and tech road mapping, app rationalization, BCM, strategy, modeling, and a number of others. But I would always recommend that you go ahead and customize your document libraries to your specific liking. So while I have mine grouped by use case, you can always group yours by a specific architecture domain, the out-of-the-box document type or Visio template that each diagram is using, what solution you're using, or you can always add columns as well to the right-hand side. So you might want to go ahead and add a column for, say, the specific diagram owner, so you have some level of governance. So you'll always be able to go ahead and customize your document library to make sure everything is easily accessible. And then this is just sort of the general document library. And then this is where you would be able to access the diagram viewer. So as you can see here, I have this column called iServer 365. It will likely get changed to Orbis Infinity once we roll out a number of further changes for the brand change. But this column shows me a green check mark. And what this indicates is this Visio diagram and a number of others are synced up to my repository. So this indicates that there's a link between my Visio diagram and Orbis Infinity. And in this case, to access the diagram viewer, what I can do is I can go ahead and click on the screen check mark for the specific diagram, or I can click on the left-hand side, and within my navigation, I can click on Show in iServer 365 Diagram Viewer, and then this will take me to the diagram viewer. So I already have it opened in another tab, but this is what you'll see off the bat. The diagram viewer is more than just sort of a high-level overview of, say, your Visio diagram. In this case, we'll be able to take a look at a number of specific attribute data for our individual objects, and that will allow our colleagues and our viewers of our SharePoint site to go ahead and make insights through Visio diagrams and browse through repository data, specifically attributes in this case. So for example, I might be a project manager who's going through my environment and locations diagram to take a look at the applications and the technologies and which location is hosting them. And I want to take a look at some specific data. So in this case, I can take a look at my Adonis X3 application and see that the total cost is nearly £93,000. But I might want to know more. So what I can do here using the diagram viewer is actually click on this application shape. And on the right-hand panel here, you can go ahead and see that I have my application object selected. And underneath the details panel right here, I can see all of the attribute data for this specific shape or this object. So here I can see the application name. I can see some general attributes like who last changed the object and when those changes were made. But if I scroll down, I can see more attribute groupings in this case. So I can see characteristics if they're filled out. I can see that Paul Smith is the owner of this application. And then further down, I can see the grouping by cost. So while I see the £92,300 is the total cost for this application, I can see a further breakdown by support costs, maintenance costs, and the subscription costs as well. I can see the lifecycle status, so I can see that this application is live. Then I can also see any date-related attributes as well. So is it a case where we plan on containing or phasing out this application? And when will the vendor stop supporting it as well? I can see stuff like outages and usages based off the operational groups. Take a look at standards, any strategy involved in the application, and then also any fit as well. So the business fit or the technical fit to see how this application is working. And then also further down in the links panel here, I can go ahead and see if this application object is being used by any other diagrams as well. So in this case, with Adonis X3 selected, I can see that it's also being used in a application integration diagram, and then also an applications by capability diagram as well, and a later viewpoint. So in this case, I'll be able to see where this application might be used, and I might be able to browse these additional diagrams to see if there's any additional impact that I might want to take a look at if I want to consider, say, phasing out Adonis X3. So that's the links panel. And then we can also go ahead and leave feedback as well. So in this case, I might not go through Orbis Infinity in my day-to-day, but I might see something within the details tab that sort of sticks out. So for example, underneath the cost attribute grouping, I saw that the total cost is nearly £93,000, but support, maintenance, and subscription costs does not add up to that. So I might have sort of an internal alarm bell in my mind thinking this doesn't really add up in terms of the cost. So I can go ahead and leave feedback within the feedback panel here and leave a comment and say, should the total cost be lower? I can go ahead and post that comment. And then my EA team who uses Orbis Infinity will be able to see that comment being left within the application and see if there's any issues with the cost. So you'll be able to have collaboration for specific individual objects between SharePoint and Orbis Infinity using the feedback panel. And then also the related panel here will show you all of the relationships that the selected object has with all of the other objects throughout your organization. So I can see here, obviously, with my Agonics application, it has a number of relationships with other applications and is communicating with them. But I can also see that it is supporting a number of business capabilities like compliance, customer experience, and a few others. And then further down, I can see additional relationships as well. So it's being used by my back office organization, and it's also being used by a specific process. So what I can see here is if something happens to, say, my Chicago location or any of the underlying technologies that supports my application, what I can see is that if anything happens here and that causes my application to go offline, that could then impact a number of business capabilities. So this will allow me to do some impact analysis and also take a look to see if there's any dependencies through the diagram viewer. So hopefully you'll be able to use the diagram viewer to take insights for the individual attributes of your objects through Visio diagrams, and then also perform some analysis as well using the links and the related tab as well. But yeah, that is the document library and the diagram viewer. And then I also want to show you what we call web parts. So as you can see here in the top navigation, I have my SharePoint site structured in a specific way where I might have my own users who are using the SharePoint site to get some specific information. So they might want to take a look at specific pages for app rationalization, like my application portfolio page. And they can go ahead and take a look at this and see for my application portfolio page, what we're aiming to do here at Big Bang is to reduce costs, duplication, risks, and then also remove any redundancies across our application domain. So that will be useful, and we'll want to make sure that we structure our SharePoint site so all of our colleagues are able to make the necessary insights and get informed decisions. And to do that, what we can do is we can actually embed data from Orbis Infinity onto our SharePoint pages. And we can do this through web parts because web parts are essentially the building blocks that will allow us to customize our SharePoint pages and socialize our repository content. And we have a number of different web parts that you'll be able to leverage, and I'll walk you through each one. So given the fact that this SharePoint page is for my application portfolio, what I might want to take a look at is, say, a list view, which shows all of the applications that are being used across my organization. So my authors and content creators who use Orbis Infinity will be able to create a list view from there and show me the entire application portfolio. And then by using the view ID, I can actually embed this view and actually have this on my SharePoint page. So all of my colleagues will be able to go through the list view and take a look at all of the individual applications, like say the Agonics X3 application that we just reviewed, and take a look at all of the columns here and make some additional insights. So they can again see Paul Smith is the owner. They can take a look at the business fit, the technical fit, the lifecycle status, and also the risk rating, and then go through potentially how many users within Big Bang uses the specific application, the internal live date, and who last made changes to the individual object. And then, yeah, they'll be able to go through the entire list view and review the entire application portfolio. And they might see that specific fields are missing as well, which might be a call out to go ahead and contact the owner to see what might be going on there. And we can do this through the entire list view. So I have 13 pages. but I can also use search functionality to look for an individual application as well. So that is the view web part. And then further down, you can see I have a number of other web parts that are not populating. And that's because by actually interacting with my view web part, I'll be able to make some specific insights using some other web parts as well. So if I go ahead and click on Adonis X3 distribution, and I scroll back down, what I can see here is that all of these web parts are now populated. So we have a couple of different web parts that will allow you to get some additional insights by interacting with the view. So in this case, we have our object details web part, which just like the diagram viewer, will go ahead and show me all of the attribute data for the specific application that I've selected. So again, I can see all of the cost attributes, lifecycle status, and a number of other attributes as well, which are not actually visible on the list view here. So your colleagues will be able to use the object details web part to make sure that they're able to get all of the necessary data to make informed decisions. And then in the middle here, we have the object related web part. And just like the diagram viewer as well, you'll be able to see all of the relationships that this individual application has within your organization. So what I can see here is that Exonix X3 is being used by a couple of different capabilities. Again, it's being hosted in Chicago, just like we saw in the environments and locations diagram. And then I can also see that it is processing a number of data entities and it's being realized by a couple of different underlying technologies as well. So the object-related web part will allow you to go ahead and see how this individual application or any object that you select when you create your own views to see those relationships and see how far-reaching and how widespread an individual object has in terms of its impact throughout your organization. And then lastly here, we have the feedback web part. So just like the diagram viewer as well, if you go ahead and select a application through the list view, using this web part, you will be able to go ahead and leave feedback for the object that you've selected. So in this case here, given the fact that I left feedback in the diagram viewer for this same application, I can see the comment that I posted 5 minutes ago. So you'll be able to see that when you leave feedback, it'll be throughout SharePoint and then also Orbis Infinity as well. So you'll be able to leave comments and make sure that you're able to have a conversation with your colleagues about the specific objects that they want to get insights for, and make sure that nothing is lost between something like Slack or Microsoft Teams. So hopefully the feedback web part will allow you to make sure that you have a paper trail for all of the conversations and all of the questions that you might have for the different objects and different aspects of your organization that you're going through. And then really the last web part that I want to display is the report viewer. So as some of you might know, you can go ahead and actually leverage Power BI embedded reports through the Solutions Hub. So if you go through the Solutions Hub, you'll probably find a number of reports that you might have purchased, and you'll be able to run within a couple of minutes to get insights for your repository data. And once you go ahead and activate the solution and it's running on your SharePoint site, which you can see in my case, I have a number of reports that I've activated. You can actually embed those report packs onto SharePoint pages to go ahead and make sure that folks are able to effectively get all of the data and all of the insights that they need through Power BI on these specific SharePoint pages, as opposed to just sort of going through tabs and having to find all of the specific insights that they might need. So in this case, given the fact that this SharePoint page is for my application portfolio, I've gone ahead and embedded my app rationalization pack onto this SharePoint page. So as a user, I can go ahead and get insights through all 6 of these out-of-the-box Power BI reports by either just launching the report here by clicking the link, or I can just go through the tabs. So in this case, as say a product manager or a project manager, I want to know more information about my applications. So I can go through the app decision catalog to take a look at all of the applications by, say, my business capabilities. So in this case, this might have some issues here, but I can also go through the application scoring report as well. So I can go ahead and see all of the applications that are being used within my organization. And this will show me all of the apps and how they're being scored by both business fit and technical fit. And I can actually sort them by capability as well. So it looks like I'm having some issues with the Power BI reports on my side. But in any case, you'll be able to interact with Power BI reports to make sure you're getting all of the insights that you need. We also have this application cost summary report as well. So you'll be able to get a breakdown of all of the costs of your applications. And then you can also break down your application costs by business concept. So if you want to break it down by, say, the specific application category, you can group your applications by, say, CRM or EA tools or even your ERP and get a cost breakdown there. And then you can also take a look at what capabilities they'll be a part of. So in this case, I can see I have my first level capabilities of customer product management, my middle, back office, and corporate office as well. And as I go through my application categories, I'll see what capabilities they are supporting. And then, of course, I can also go through my application landscape matrix as well. So I can go through all of my applications in this case and see how they're going to be graded and scored. So I can see the process count, the location count, and also the capability count as well, which we can see here. So I have my first level capability and then also any second or third levels as well. And then lastly, for this report pack, we have the application data completeness report. So I can go ahead and see and make sure that as my team and I are going through populating Orbis Infinity, we'll want to make sure that we have all of the necessary data and make sure there aren't any gaps that exist. So I can go through this report and see the completeness by the specific attribute that I might want to take a look at. So for example, I see that potentially the owner field isn't really filled out. So I might want to go ahead and reach out to some of my colleagues here and see if folks are missing, say, a couple of attributes that they have to fill out. We can take a look at that. And if I scroll up within my list view, I can see that, say, AT Carney abbreviate has a number of missing attributes here. And I can see Kelly is the owner of that. And if I scroll further down here, I would be able to go ahead and search for Kelly within my completeness by owner and see if she's missing any other attributes for any other subsequent applications as well, and make sure that we're going to be able to fill out all of the necessary data and make sure no gaps exist. So hopefully you'll find use by embedding the Power BI reports that you purchased through the Solutions Hub onto your SharePoint pages. And you can always find the solutions, the Power BI reports that you've purchased through the Solutions Hub. And then also through the Solutions Hub, you can go ahead and take a look at intake forms as well. So you can go ahead and run a custom intake form through the Solutions Hub by just editing the solution and then running it afterwards. And this will be really useful because essentially what intakes forms is they're an out-of-the-box solution that is integrated with Microsoft Lists that allows you to go ahead and create customized intake forms that will allow both you and your colleagues to go ahead and create new objects within your repository. So your EA team might be stretched pretty thin, and it might be a case where they could use help populating to the repository. In this case, maybe say a product manager or a project manager might want to go ahead and look to add applications to our future state model so we can see how they might exist within the next 3 to 5 years. So we can actually go ahead and create an intake form to go ahead and do that. And we will be able to go ahead and map the fields from our intake form for our application object and go ahead and map them to a specific attribute and relationship fields that will then be populated within Orbis Infinity. So in this case, I've gone ahead and created an intake form for new application requests. So in this case, I might want to consider adding an application for my target state in the next 2 years, just because it's a part of my product roadmap. So here I can go ahead and fill out all of these fields, and then this will then be populated within Orbis Infinity, and my EA team will be able to work within the repository and see how it might be integrated within the larger scope of my organization. So in this case, I might consider adding Salesforce to my organization in the next 2 years. And in this case, given the fact that this is going to be for the future state, I'll put this as proposed for the lifecycle status. And then given the fact that in an ideal world, I'll want to make sure that Salesforce is integrated with all of my other applications and my capabilities seamlessly, I can go ahead and give this a business fit of 5 and a technical fit of 5. And if I'm a product manager adding this application, I might be the product owner who has to take ownership for the application as well. So I would just go ahead and put my name under the owner field. And then lastly, I would want to probably assess the risk that will be involved adding this application to my app portfolio. So it might be moderate risk. So I can go ahead and just put this risk rating with a number of 3, because risk rating, just like business fit and technical fit, works on a scale of 1 to 5. And given the fact that this application is a part of my product roadmap, I might go ahead and launch this in the future. So in terms of a live date, I can go ahead and add some date-related attributes, and I'll go ahead and push this further out. Oh, it's acting up a little bit on my side. So I'll go ahead and just put this as August 31st of this year. I can go ahead and save all of my changes. And then I can see here that I've gone ahead and put in a new application request to add Salesforce to our repository. And then once this is actually added to Orbis Infinity, I will go ahead and see this iServer 365 status populate with the green check mark as well. And all of my attribute data will populate in addition to that. So hopefully through this demo, I've been able to showcase you a couple of different ways where you'll be able to go ahead and link Salesforce to Orbis Infinity. So you'll be able to leverage all of the data that you're putting into Orbis Infinity as your single source of truth, and make sure that it's accessible to everyone throughout your organization, so that everyone has the data that they need to make the most informed decisions possible, and to make those decisions as fast as possible as well. So with that in mind, I've gone ahead and walked through everything in terms of the demo, and I'll be able to answer some questions as well. So I'll go ahead and just throw it back to Kelly, so she can go ahead and just give you some best practices and finish with some closing remarks. So Kelly, if you want to go ahead and just take control back on your side.
Great, thank you, Mickey. That was a really thorough overview. I appreciate that. Awesome. Okay, so now that you know what pieces and parts are available to you in your SharePoint site, you might be asking yourself, okay, well, how do I set this up to make it meaningful and usable for all the people who need access to this information? Well, we've got some best practices to share with you based on our experience with all of the customers we've helped over the years. So, and the first recommendation we have to focus on is making some initial decisions. When we have our scoping call with new customers, we go over this in detail and we ask you, first of all, what type of SharePoint site are you setting up? There's a team site, there's a communication site, there are pros and cons to each one. What kind of information is going to live here? Who will be consuming this data? How should it be organized? These questions will help drive the overall layout of your site. Some customers who have a small group of folks who need this data here might prefer to have just a few pages set up, maybe one landing page that links out to all their different use cases. Other more complex organizations might have mini sites set up for each team's data. So the APM team, the cloud team, security folks, situations where it wouldn't make sense to necessarily cross-pollinate the data, they may have their own separate mini sites set up within that they would live in. So spend some time thinking about how best to structure your site depending on how your organization works, and the rest will follow. Once you're ready to get started with adding in your data, our next recommendation is start simple. Start with the data you have. You don't have to wait for everything to be in Orbis Infinity before you start publishing things out. Use what you've got initially and go from there. Now, think about how you can get to value quickly. Now, I've spoken with a lot of folks who seem kind of hesitant to show leadership their content if it's not 100% pristine. But don't forget, the perfect is the enemy of the good. Don't try to boil the ocean. It's a phrase we throw around here pretty frequently, and do everything all at once, or else you're never going to get to value and your execs are going to get frustrated because they don't have anything to look at. So define your MVP, your minimum viable product, and get ready to show off all your hard work as soon as it makes sense to do so. That's our recommendation. Just think agile, not waterfall. All right. Recommendation number 3 ties in with number 1 really nicely. Organize, organize, organize. We recommend that you structure your pages according to your stakeholder needs. Do application owners need to drill through dashboards to get to their app portfolio, or can they have their own landing page where they see all their own stuff? Does your C-suite want to see all the dashboards on one main page? This ties in with recommendation number 1, as I said earlier. Once you have those decisions made, structure your site accordingly. Also, don't forget to add context to your pages so that everyone knows what they're looking at. Just a little bit of text at the top will go a long way into explaining the charts, the visualizations, the web parts. It's really, really helpful. Context is king. Something else to think about is whether or not you already have an EA SharePoint site with documentation in it. Ask yourself what content is relevant to bring over into Orbis Infinity. If you've got diagrams in one site and Orbis Infinity artifacts in another site, it can be hard for folks to know where to go. So decide where these things should live to avoid confusion. And again, Mickey did a great job showing a document library earlier. Definitely don't forget to organize that. Make sure the structure is digestible for everybody. As he mentioned earlier, typically the recommendation is one library for each model that you have, but you don't have to do it that way if it doesn't make sense for you guys. You can organize it by domain. You can organize it by what template you're using, by the owner, whatever makes it easy for the people that you're working with to find what they need. And lastly, a term that we're all familiar with here, governance. Make sure you're applying governance to your SharePoint site. Governance in Orbis Infinity is a whole nother topic I think we'll be covering in a future webinar, hint, hint. But when you're thinking about your site, make sure the right people have the right permissions. You don't want the new guy coming in on his second day and rearranging everything according to his own personal aesthetic. That's gonna confusion will be everywhere. We don't want that. Conversely, you may wanna make sure folks like application owners have the ability to edit objects via web parts so they can manage things directly in SharePoint if they wanna do it that way. Also, make sure the right people have access to the content within SharePoint, the reports and the dashboards, the web parts. Make sure the right people have viewer licenses because you want to be able to show off your hard work. You don't want your boss to be coming in to the SharePoint site and not able to see anything because he doesn't have the right kind of license applied. That's a bad experience. So make sure everybody who needs access to the content has it. I know it sounds pretty simple, but you'd be surprised at what people overlook. So that I think about wraps it up for today. I really appreciate everybody's time today. Hopefully you found this session helpful. Stay tuned for more details on next month's webinar around business capability management. And again, if you have any other additional questions after this, feel free to reach out to us. We're here to help. So thanks again, and until next time.